Hello, everyone. I hope you are well. We are in a teaching series called Better Together. It's about Paul's letter to the Philippians. But today I want to also share some cool news with you about some discussions a few of us are having about when we'll start opening the building for gatherings again and our next steps as a church, even as we sail on some unpredictable waters. Stay tuned to the end of this video for those updates. For now, we're looking at this ancient letter to the Philippians because even though it happened so long ago and so far away, we are going through a collective experience that is similar to Paul's experience while he wrote this letter. He is socially isolated. Paul cannot see people that he wants to see. He cannot travel to where he wants to be. We're a little like Paul in that way. All of our plans are paused. The section we are reading a little slower this week is Philippians chapter 1, verses 12 through 14. It's short enough. I feel like I have time to read it, so I will. Now I want you to know, brothers and sisters, that what has happened to me has actually served to advance the gospel. As a result, it has become clear throughout the whole palace guard and to everyone else that I am in chains for Christ. And because of my chains, most of the brothers and sisters have become confident in the Lord and dare all the more to proclaim the gospel without fear. So this is the point in the letter where Paul begins to address one major reason that Epaphroditus has shown up in the first place. The Philippians are worried about their friend, who they have heard is in prison, in chains for Christ. We should note that it's rare in Paul's letters to launch into a section like this where he is updating his friends on his own present circumstances. Usually he just lets his trusted letter deliverer fill them in on those details so he can save some ink. But remember, Paul often uses modeling as a way of teaching, so he's not just informing them on his circumstances, he's advising them on how to view their own circumstances, even in oppressive, restrictive circumstances. Paul is teaching them that God can use them if they're faithful, if they're just acting like Jesus. That is my cat ruining the couch. Say sorry, Stevie. She doesn't want to say sorry. Back to the message. We're taking Paul's bait together. We're going to try to put ourselves in Paul's shoes so we can learn what he's teaching us. And I think that we're in a special moment where while we have this text in our hands, we are more prisoner-esque than most of us will ever be in our times. So think for a second about how our coronavirus experience has given us a little taste of what it means to be a prisoner. Here's my short list of how I'm doing that. So, our rights have been limited, first of all. People sometimes look at us funny or worriedly, perhaps, if you have to go into certain places. It's election year. It could be hard to vote. Just getting to the polls. Our food supply will be simplified or limited, possibly soon. Obviously, we have very limited or no visitors. My question to you is how else is coronavirus bringing us closer to the experience of prisoners? You can pause this if you want to think about that. Prison is one of those things that at least I don't think about very often. Everything about prison is out of sight and out of mind. But we should remember that as you read the book of Acts, you'll see that Paul's life experience is marked up consistently with prison. The danger is always around him, even when he's not in prison. These moments come where just because of who, when, and where he is, he gets sent to jail, even though he hasn't really done anything wrong, even though it's the people around him that are stirring up trouble. As I considered this part of Paul's story, the part where he writes to the Philippians from prison, I quickly realized that while I can relate to him more than ever from lockdown, I cannot relate to him as someone who has been unfairly targeted by a willfully malicious justice system. I've usually been treated well by the system that we are a part of. And this week, more than ever, I know that this is in part, at least partially, because of the color of my skin. What I'm getting at, of course, is Ahmaud Arbery's shooting, which happened on February 23rd. That's when two men who look like me killed someone who was my age because of his appearance. He looked like someone who was burglarizing the neighborhood and who should be brought to their form of justice. These men, who admitted to their crime very quickly, were unaffected by the justice system because of who they were. So for the Black people in that community who watched all of this play out on the news and on social media, well, we can understand from so far away why they would be complaining about the giant holes in their justice system. So I say all that to note that I am unfamiliar with the cruel side of the law. There's no giant missing pieces in my justice puzzle. And because of that, I don't even know anyone who's been in prison for unnecessarily long swaths of time, or for being in a wrong place at the wrong time with the wrong appearance. I don't even know anyone personally who is currently in prison to make these comments more relatable. So as we take Paul's bait, as we use him as our model, that's the first thing that I realized during this week. I'm experiencing part of his life due to coronavirus, but because I am white and there are simply more safeguards between me and prison, I just can't relate to Paul all the way. Maybe I need to change that. I don't want to go to prison, but it would be wise for us all to try and know someone completely different than us. Try to get to know someone without judgment or comparison. Even if it's only for the simple sake of doing what Jesus told us to do in Matthew 25, where we're judged based off of our treatment of prisoners or visiting them. But I think God teaches us good things the more we get to know people who are different than we are. Speaking of getting to know people different than who we are, I want to turn to verse 13. This is where we'll spend the rest of the lesson, basically. It's where Paul says that he's gotten to know the entire imperial guard. He has shared the gospel with all of them. Now, these people sound important, and they also sound plentiful. And whoever the imperial guard is, they sound quite imperial. I imagine a group of just sturdy veterans in the classic bronze-ish looking metal armor and those red clothing pieces and accessories that just scream ancient Rome. But the main thing about these men, though, is that they are loyal to the emperor. Their lives literally revolve, mind, body, and soul, around protecting Caesar and those he deems important. 3 quick things about that. First of all, a big difference about our culture and ancient culture. We have 2 spheres where we try to hold government and religion separately. The ancient world did not try to do that. Government was a part of your religious experience as a Roman citizen. Caesar was not some unelected official. He was literally godlike. He was part of the buffet experience at the all-you-can-eat ancient pluralism cafe. Christianity today, and in the ancient world, is an inherently political religion because Jesus has, to us, literally ascended to be at God's right hand, to be the Lord of the church and the world. When I say that today, it doesn't sound as politically threatening because that's all religious and our government is secular. But back then, it instantly is a transcendent difference between Paul and his guards. That was a little long, but yeah, they're as different as it gets. That's the first point about this. Second quick thing. The term palace guard here is translated from praetorium, which literally is a word for the governor's tent. This verse is how scholars basically divide themselves on guessing where Paul was being held when he wrote this letter. In Rome near the end of his life, or Ephesus earlier than that. Gordon Fee, the commentator I'm using, really pushes the idea that this word has become shorthand for the imperial guard, which is how it's translated. The ones who guarded the governor's tent. So that's how it's become shorthand. This guard would have been used even in Rome, where there was no use for a governor's tent, and probably would have been simply referred to as the praetorium because of their great status as guards. Okay, that point was also long, but now you know why Gordon Fee thinks Paul is in Rome, and that will come into play later on, but now you just know. Okay, the third quick thing, and this is the quickest one. Just imagine Paul stuck in Rome. He can only see the rare visitor and Timothy. So what he does is, probably every 4 to 6 hours, he spends time getting to know and making himself and Jesus known to these people who may never convert to Christianity or abandon the world where Caesar is Lord. And we can see that Paul gets excited about that just in these couple verses. That's all I have for today, lesson-wise. Next week, we will be talking more about contentment, something I told Pierre I would talk more about today. Sorry, Pierre, if that messed you up. Thanks for bringing the singing despite my misplan. I will say that next week's message on contentment is inspired partly by the great material I have been reading in our midweek messages that Wayne is gathering and sending out. Please, if you have some way to encourage us, reach out to him. We also hear our prayer requests often like this, so I encourage you to check those out when they come, and thank you for everyone who contributes to those Wednesday messages. And finally, that promised announcement. In addition to our emails, expect a note in the mail with some survey questions that will help us think together as we make some decisions about church in the next several weeks. That's important. Don't throw that out. One change that is coming soon will be the opportunity to assemble online together via Zoom. You'll hear more about that in the midweek email, so yeah, seriously check that out. I'm excited about everything. Thank you all. I'm excited to be better together with you again soon. And don't think that we forgot that it's Mother's Day, so we wanted to say Happy Mother's Day to all you mothers out there.
Happy Mother's Day!
Including this mom.